Firing off resumes into the digital void, just waiting for the phone to ring? Yeah, we've all been there.
I'm Sky, the virtual ambassador for Triple Finale Careers, home of the GigVettr. If you've been waiting for someone to contact you for an interview, but for whatever reason, it's just not happening, then this message is specifically for you.
Today, we're putting alternative income under the microscope and looking at the reality of expanding your search way beyond the traditional interview. Look, your long-term search for that perfect full-time role, that can absolutely continue. But today, we're talking about how to expand your immediate income right now.
If you've been applying for jobs and you're struggling to get interviews, I want you to remember something. First of all, your ability to earn money doesn't suddenly disappear because employers or recruiters aren't responding to your resume. I've spent more than 30 years in recruiting, HR, and career coaching. And one thing that I want you to understand is that the traditional hiring process is only one marketplace for your skills. So while you're continuing to pursue your career, that career that you really, really want, I want you to ask yourself, what can you do with the skills, knowledge, and resources that you already have in order to generate income in the meantime so that you're bringing in money while you're waiting to interview?
Let's get right into it. It's time to completely rethink how we connect our value to actual income. Seriously, if you're feeling frustrated with the grind right now, ask yourself this. What if you could just skip the interview completely? What if the traditional interview isn't some strict prerequisite for earning a living, but literally just one of many gateways? We all know the traditional pipeline, right? You send a resume, a recruiter screens it, you do the interview, and hopefully you get an offer. But an expansive income search operates on completely different rules. You're looking at alternative qualification and onboarding processes. Now, let me be very clear here. Skipping the traditional interview does not mean skipping the qualification process entirely. You might skip the recruiter, sure, but you definitely don't skip the requirements. And we aren't talking about some tiny niche fraction of the workforce here. To put this into perspective, the Bureau of Labor Statistics reported a staggering 11.9 million people were independent contractors on their main job in July 2023. Millions more are using gig work as a secondary income stream. You don't have to choose between a job search and a gig. You can absolutely do both. Let's understand these different pathways to income. Instead of a single, intimidating interview gate blocking your path, imagine completely different mechanisms. A freelance graphic designer, they're probably facing a portfolio gate. An on-demand repair worker might face a skills test or a background check gate. The whole point here is that different income opportunities simply have different entry points. We are not saying these pathways are easy, we're saying they are structurally different. Let's look at how this plays out in reality. Take DoorDash's official sign-up process. It skips the recruiter entirely. It's basically 3 steps. Submit your profile and verify your identity, download the app and select your vehicle, and submit to a background and motor vehicle check. Notice what's missing. Yeah, no hiring manager. It's a perfect example of an alternative gateway to earning.
And this is where I want you to slow down. Don't choose an opportunity simply because it lets you skip the interview. That's only one piece of the decision. Put the entire opportunity under a magnifying glass to really examine those fine details. What will it cost you to get started? How long will it take? What equipment, training, or licenses will you need, if any? Sometimes you don't need any of those things, but will you? And what could you realistically earn? Is it going to meet the needs that you have at this time, or do you need to get 2 gigs? And just as importantly, what responsibility and risks are you taking on when you say yes to this particular opportunity? Skipping the interview might relieve one hurdle, but it doesn't remove the need to do your homework. And I really want you to do your research before you say yes to any gig.
It's time for a necessary reality check on independent work. Because here's the thing, bypassing the interview absolutely does not mean bypassing the law. Under the Department of Labor's economic reality test, if you're an independent contractor, you are operating a business for yourself. And that means you do not have the Fair Labor Standards Act protections of a traditional employee. So you aren't getting those minimum wage and overtime guarantees. The trade-off here is serious. Gig work often means taking on the exact responsibilities and liabilities that a traditional employer would normally handle for you. As the Department of Labor puts it pretty bluntly, you are generally considered to be in business for yourself. This is a major legal distinction, so you really need to research what a platform is actually asking you to become before you hit sign up. The tax reality. Here is exactly what the IRS wants you to know. The IRS does not mess around here. Gig income is taxable, period. It literally does not matter if it's just part-time, temporary side work, paid completely in cash, or even if it isn't reported to you on a 1099 form. There is no magical tax loophole for temporary app work. You have to keep records, and you have to be prepared to pay taxes on every dollar you earn. So the golden rule to remember: you can skip the interview, but do not skip the tax planning. As a self-employed individual, you're on the hook for annual filing requirements and often estimated tax payments throughout the year. It's a highly valid income stream, but don't let anyone convince you it's just effortless, responsibility-free cash. We need to navigate the danger zones of fraudulent opportunities. Because where there's alternative income, there are definitely scammers targeting people who need it. The big question is, how do you spot an FTC-defined task scam before you lose your own hard-earned money? Usually it starts with an unsolicited message promising really easy money for clicking buttons or boosting products. The scammer's app will even show your fake earnings growing, maybe even paying you a tiny amount just to build up your trust. But here is the absolute bottom line to keep you safe, straight from the Federal Trade Commission. Never pay someone in order to get paid. The trap snaps shut the second they tell you to deposit your own money, often in crypto, to unlock your tasks or withdraw your wages. If you have to pay them to access your own earnings, it is a scam. No interview? Great. No research? Absolutely not.
Please don't let a quiet inbox become a measure of your professional value. A job search can be frustrating, and sometimes it takes a lot longer than we'd like for the right employer to recognize what we bring to the table. So, in the meantime, you don't have to put your ability to earn or your confidence on hold. Keep pursuing that career that you want, but give yourself permission to explore other legitimate ways that your experience, skills, and abilities might create income while you get there. Okay, don't put that on hold.
Look, being overlooked by one specific employer doesn't suddenly erase your actual worth. You still possess incredibly valuable skills. Maybe you can organize, teach, write, repair, design, analyze complex information, or solve tricky problems. Just because a traditional resume pipeline is backed up doesn't mean the market has rendered a final verdict on your value. You still own your expertise and your time. Before you jump at the first thing that avoids an interview, use tools like GigVettr to put the opportunity under a microscope.
Okay, let me jump in here for a second and explain a little bit more about the GigVettr. The GigVettr is our companion platform where you can research hundreds of gig ideas and explore more than 1,000 companies, platforms, and apps that might help you turn those ideas into income. We built it to help you look beyond the opportunity itself and research the details that can affect your decision. Things like startup costs, potential earnings, training, certifications, requirements, pros and cons, and a lot more. And it's very interactive, so you can leave comments. You can rate a specific gig or a company or an app and tell us whether or not you've tried it before, because we want to know, and we want to know what your experience was like and get people talking about it so that it can help you make a more informed decision down the road. Because finding a gig is one thing, but deciding whether it's the right gig for you is another.
Really dig into it. Research the startup costs, the required equipment, the tax considerations, and the true risks so you can make a fully informed decision. What's the platform fee? Do I need a car? What is the real earning potential versus the risk? Because remember this key takeaway. The interview is just one mechanism for connecting your value with income. It is not the value itself. Being unseen by a traditional hiring manager does not mean you have nothing to offer. You can absolutely run your long-term career strategy and your immediate income strategy at the exact same time. Research your options, understand the legal trade-offs, protect yourself from scams, and recognize the immense value you already bring to the table. So, I'll leave you with this. Will you keep waiting for the market to grant you an interview, or will you take control and expand your income search today?